If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Kath Bequee. I'm a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of 3. Inside my online program, FitNest Mama, I help women feel confident and strong inside out as they navigate pregnancy, birth, and postnatal recovery. Each week, I bring you 2 episodes to support you on your motherhood journey, whether it's real and raw birth stories from fellow mums, expert interviews with trusted health professionals, or bite-sized Q&As where I answer your most common questions. It is possible to feel amazing in your body during this stage of life, and I want that for you. Come and say hi on Instagram at kathbequee.physio, and let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome back to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. Today I'm speaking to a beautiful previous member of the FitNest Mama app. Her name's Kelsey. She's based in Canada and she gave birth. Her birth story is beautiful. It's a positive experience and it's a vaginal birth with forceps. So it was really lovely to be able to speak to someone who had intervention and had a positive experience. She also had an induction at just over 41 weeks pregnancy. She discussed different techniques that really supported her during her birth, including breathing techniques, use of the shower. She used epidural, and she walks us through her vaginal birth with forceps. And then at the end, she shares how FitNest Mama really helped with her early postpartum recovery. So it's an absolute pleasure chatting with Kelsey today. Before we do dive straight into the episode, just wanted to say thank you so much for if you're able to share this podcast with friends, if you're able to give us a rating and review, if you enjoy the podcast, it really helps with the algorithm and it helps this podcast get seen by more people, which essentially helps me to be able to continue the podcast. I really appreciate each and every one of you listening today. I am always blown away when I hear your messages, when you send me a DM on Instagram or an email. Thank you. But without further ado, let's dive into this beautiful episode, birth story today, with Kelsey. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining me on the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. You've got a beautiful daughter. And you're sharing your birth story today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So 11 months, a little girl called Kaya.
Yes, yeah, Kaya.
Kaya, sorry. I should have checked that off air.
Oh,
that's the Aussie slang kicking in. And you're from Canada?
Yes. Yeah, I am in pretty close to Vancouver, BC. Although my husband is Australian, so we have a lot of family in Australia, and we are there pretty much every year.
Oh, is that right? Yes. Fantastic. Whereabouts in Australia?
So he is from Brisbane, and we go back to visit his parents and a lot of aunts and uncles, and have been to the Gold Coast a number of times, specifically at Easter. But we also, his sister and our brother-in-law, they live in Sydney. As well as a few cousins and another aunt and uncle. So Brisbane and Sydney.
Oh, beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, we love it.
Along with Canada, of course.
Also beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't visited Canada, so I can't really talk to it. That's certainly on the bucket list. Okay, so you joined FitNest Mama at 6 weeks, just 6 weeks postpartum. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
And you were keen to get back into exercise and cycling and running eventually with your pelvic floor intact.
Yes, yeah. Exercise has always been like a big part of my life, and I really wanted to re-enter into it after giving birth in like as informed of a way as possible. And so I listened to the podcast quite a bit while I was breastfeeding, pretty much every night on repeat. And I was just soaking it all up. It was really, really helpful.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we will. How is your, now that you're 11 months postpartum,
Mhm.
and we will get to your birth story, but let's,
Mhm.
first of all, how is your recovery, like physically,
Mhm.
um, postpartum at the moment?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good, and I think that, for me, like, when I get to meet, people who are just about to give birth now or they're pregnant, I feel really great to get to tell them, like, "Oh my gosh, like, it gets so much easier, and I'm feeling really strong right now." Really feeling, like, pretty normal again, just feel like my old self and really enjoying you almost appreciate being able to exercise even more. So, yeah, I've been doing lots of cycling, yoga and Pilates and strength and in a different way. It's in a different way with the schedule with the baby, but just, yeah, feeling really strong and feeling comfortable. And it had been I was actually able to go do like a long distance cycling race at 10 months, which I didn't know if I'd be able to do it. It wasn't trying to 100% be able to do that, but it just cycling was like lower impact than running, and I did find it accessible and just practicing over time. So I'm feeling really happy with where I'm at physically, feeling really strong.
Amazing. Okay, let's rewind
Yeah.
to your pregnancy. Was your pregnancy planned?
It was, yeah, it was planned, and I had my IUD removed earlier in the year. I guess that must have been 2023, and then we kind of started trying in the fall, and we did have one early miscarriage, which was pretty sad. That was an interesting experience to go through. Just how much grief you feel even in like the really early weeks. But we were very fortunate that like exactly 4 weeks after that loss, I had another positive test. So it was, yeah, overall, pretty smooth, planned pregnancy.
Amazing. And as you progressed through the pregnancy, were there any bumps in the road?
It was actually, I think it was just the early miscarriage that was the biggest bump because I really didn't expect it. And I had only known for 3 days, but in that 3 days, your whole mindset kind of clicks like, I'm pregnant. And you start
Yeah.
envisioning all of these things. So that was the biggest bump because there was a lot of sadness and anxiety and worry. But I was so lucky, really fortunate to get pregnant again so early, only 4 weeks after the loss.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of anxiety at the beginning. As many people feel, especially if you've had a loss, like so much anxiety, just wanting to make it through that first trimester. But there were really no other bumps. Like I was pretty physically comfortable. I didn't get a ton of nausea. Um, it was pretty
Okay.
smooth. Yeah.
Yep. And did that early miscarriage, did it shape, like you mentioned you had some anxiety, was that
Mm.
just in the first trimester anxiety, or did that sort of shape the whole pregnancy a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say mostly like a higher anxiety at the beginning. Like I think I'm sure a lot of people experience like you almost can't let yourself be happy yet until you've reached a certain milestone. Um, uh, yeah, it just you're like I'm not gonna let myself even feel happy until the scan or until I've reached like 13 weeks or something. And so that anxiety did definitely reduce when I entered the second trimester. I felt a lot more comfortable and just kind of knowing the numbers. Um, but there was a bit more because I think once you've experienced that, like something that you didn't think was going to happen happened. So there was a bit of that. But I imagine probably a lot of people feel that way. Just like until you have the actual baby in your hands, there's like that, there can be that little wondering, just, but definitely it declined. Each week it declined, and that initial grief definitely faded away. And I'm experiencing a lot more of the reality of the pregnancy than the grief.
I distinctly remember at 28 weeks pregnant
Mm.
with my first going for a checkup, and the doctor did a quick scan in the rooms, and then he said, he made quick like throwaway comment as the doctors do, but he was like, "Your baby is now viable. Congratulations!"
No.
And I suddenly was like, "What? Oh my gosh! You
Was it
mean
not
like
before?
it? Well, exactly. It brought up a whole lot of things in my
Oh,
brain that I had not been even considering, and like almost brought a whole level of anxieties to my pregnancy. Anyway,
no, it
words
wasn't even
matter,
on
don't
your
they?
radar. Wasn't even on your
It's like, oh
radar.
no, it wasn't on my radar, but it certainly was after that.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
um, but going back to you, Kelsey, so you've you've having a relatively smooth pregnancy in terms of not much nausea. You mentioned
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
too much fatigue. You're
Hmm.
traveling through your second pregnancy, like, but your first
Right.
the second stage, second trimester.
Hmm.
What was going through your mind? Like, at what stage did you start to think more about the upcoming birth?
Mm. Hmm. Probably pretty early, but I would say definitely the closer to the in the second trimester, I started being like, okay, now's the time where I'm going to start preparing. But what I had always had in my head from it might have even been before I was pregnant, was I knew that I wanted to use hypnobirthing. Like I had had a close friend who had used it with amazing results, and she kind of brought this topic to mind. And so I had really latched on to that. And I have multiple thoughts about it now. I've kind of like a bit more nuanced of an opinion, but I had always been thinking of the birth since learning about hypnobirthing and being like, wow, that I really want to be engaged with the birth and I want to prepare for it emotionally. So that had always definitely been part of my perspective, was like wanting to prepare for the birth. But I really started preparing more halfway through. That's when I was like, okay, I'm going to read the book. I'm going to take some hypnobirthing like coaching, and actually that's the time
Yeah,
halfway through.
halfway through. Yep. So still about 20 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And is it big in Canada, the hypnobirthing side
Um,
of things?
I think hmm, it's not huge. I think no, it's not. It's not the mainstream thing to do. I definitely would have to explain to most people what it was. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but a handful of people know about it. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, I knew a friend who had done that," or "I've heard about that." But it's not the mainstream thing. You would have to
Mm.
define it for a loved one.
And did your partner do the hypnobirthing as well?
Oh no. No, no, that was me and the coach. I think yeah, he knew I would I like to write notes and I like to do like teaching. So that was kind of part of after my coaching sessions, I would kind of like give him the Coles notes. And I think I remember even writing a list of literally each stage of labor and how that connected to the hypnobirthing view of that stage and then what he needed to do at that time. So he was
Ah, that's
supportive. He was
clever.
open-minded to
Yep.
it. Yeah. And he would
Yep.
got kind of the notes from me.
Yep. He'd read the notes.
Yeah.
That was really clever, linking like each stage of labour with
Yeah.
tasks for your birth partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping because I just was thinking, I might not be able to answer any of your questions in the actual
Yeah.
labor. So here you go. Here are the signs and symptoms. Here's what you can do.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so you're traveling through your pregnancy, you're getting stuck into your hypnobirthing preparation.
Mhm.
What, like leading to birth, was there anything else that was really stand out for you in the pregnancy side or the birth preparation side of things?
Pregnancy wise, it was great. I feel really grateful. I really enjoyed my pregnancy. I was really excited. The baby was something I 100% wanted. I felt pretty good. I definitely was continuing to exercise, and I was just really open to just changing the way that looked. I was surprised. I think I had thought that I would be more bothered by not being like you never know how you're going to feel when you're pregnant, and your body's changing, and I didn't know how uncomfortable or how difficult that would be, but I was totally fine with it. I'm like, I love this. I love seeing my bump. I love being pregnant. So it was actually really nice to experience, like, it didn't bother me at all that my body was changing. Um, and I was just able to exercise in a different way, and I just took the pressure off, and I would go do an elliptical for a little bit instead of I stopped my indoor cycling pretty early. I stopped as soon as I hit the second trimester. I didn't feel comfortable, moving forward to grab the handles. I felt like I was swishing the baby, like this little pain. So I was like, okay, just dropping it, and just did like light weights, walking. I had my dog requires lots of hikes, so I was just still going on lots of hikes. So it was really great. I felt strong. I was excited. And then the preparation was just like lots of reading and writing my notes. And then I did appreciate my support from my hypnobirthing coach. I think we had 6 sessions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. And in your preparations, did you, was it mostly all about achieving a vaginal birth? Were you ever having a bit of a plan B? Like, were you thinking about what if, things didn't go according to plan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good question. I think if you had asked me at the time, I would have said, yeah, I'm doing that. But when I look back now, I don't think I was really thinking of a plan B. I was kind of like acknowledging that we all need to have a plan B in case things go differently. But I don't think I really thought that a plan B was going to happen. So I didn't really have my heart in the plan B. The plan B was, I was kind of just saying that I did. So I really envisioned a vaginal birth, um, no medication. I was really, and I know some people can 100% do that. So that's not to say that it's not possible. I know people have done that. It's been really successful, and that's amazing. That's what I really thought I was going to do. Um, and that's not what happened. So I really envisioned, no medication, hypnobirthing in the hospital, my midwives there. And I think I had overestimated how much control I had over it. And I just didn't think that I knew, someone you might need an emergency C-section, or you might need an intervention. And even I had downloaded a birth preferences plan from one of the hospitals. It was like a women's hospital around here, and I downloaded it, was filling it out just as something like, I'm going to have this printed to give to the doctor. And one of the questions was, do you give us like permission for the use of forceps if we need it? Like, what would be and I just ticked the box saying yes if you need to, and make sure you explain to me what it is, like that. But in my head I was like, oh, I'll never need that. So it was a thoughtless plan B.
And did you know about forceps and risks involved
Nope, not
when you took
really, to
that?
be honest, which is kind of funny. Like, I, and because as like listeners are gonna, as we get into the birth story, I did end up needing forceps. And so it's funny that I didn't think that I needed to learn about forceps. I was like, no, I won't need to use that, Yeah, so, but I didn't know that much about it. And I'm in some ways, I'm glad I didn't, because it made me less scared. And it was actually only recently, because I had a positive experience, like, we can kind of people listening. I had a positive experience. It just went really differently than what I had planned. But I would totally do it again. It was positive. But it was funny. I had one friend who was about to give birth. This is like 2 months ago, and she was saying, "Oh yeah, my pelvic floor physio was telling me, like, my friend is saying to me, I told my friend that you had a positive forceps experience, and my pelvic floor physio said, "Oh, weird. I would rather have a C-section than forceps." And it took me aback. So I was like, really? I didn't even think about that. And then I started to research it a bit, and I was like, oh, I'm really glad I didn't look some of this up, because it sounded, not all of it, but some of it just like sounded um, intimidating and scary. But my experience was positive. So in some ways, I'm glad I hadn't looked that up, because Dr. Google, gives us a lot of anxiety. Yeah, 'cause I ended up having a positive experience, but I didn't know much about them.
Did you know one of the best ways to support your postpartum recovery is through exercising carefully during pregnancy and preparing your body for birth? And this is something we cover inside FitNest Mama. This is what FitNest is all about with its physio-created workouts. We help you support your changing body during pregnancy, whether or not that's with pelvic girdle pain-friendly workouts, whether or not that's with strength training for pregnancy or pregnancy yoga. We help you to prepare your body for birth and reduce your risk of 3rd and 4th degree perineal tears and episiotomy. And we help to boost your postpartum recovery, whether or not you've had a vaginal or a cesarean birth. If this is something you want to do, then come and check out our free 7-day trial. You've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. And at the end of the day, it's all about helping us have a better motherhood experience, to help us feel stronger inside out in every aspect of our life: physical, mental health, confidence. Anyway, I could keep on going, but come and check out the link in the show notes and join our free 7-day trial. See you soon. Yep. And you're absolutely right. Like, I think sometimes knowledge is helpful.
Yeah.
And then sometimes knowledge is not so helpful. And I did recently, for anyone who's listening and thinking, oh, I want to find out more about forceps, I will link in the show notes a recent episode I did with Dr. Amber Moore, an obstetrician, and we talked about when instrumental deliveries might be required, and we went into detail about the different types of instrumental delivery and, discussing plan Bs, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I will link that in the show notes. Well, now, Kelsey, that we've sort of done a little bit of a segue, take us on the journey of the day you went into labour.
Yeah.
If that even happened. Take us on the journey. I won't say any more. I'll let you lead the way.
And just kind of tying it back to as well, like how, reflecting right now, I really had such an emotional investment into my birth going a few different ways, and it didn't happen that way. And so, but even though it was still positive. And so one of the parts leading up to the birth that was, I was very emotionally stuck on, was I really didn't want an induction. And I ended up needing one. And so that was a big part of the week going into my birth. So I ended up needing a cervical induction at 41 weeks and 5 days. And so my decision making around that was, I wasn't forced to do it, but it was just highly recommended, because I believe it's after 42 weeks, the risks to the birth do start to go up. And admittedly, like, they're quite small. They are quite small, but they do start to increase, I think each day or each week. So it's just something to consider. And even though there's still quite small risks. So I felt really on the fence about getting the induction, but I just didn't feel certain enough to not get it. So emotionally, I was grappling with that a lot in the week leading up to the induction, because I'm like, oh no, I'm not going into labor yet. I really don't want an induction. I was really upset about it. But I just spoke to some friends and listened to a lot of podcast episode on positive induction stories, and, just acknowledging, okay, some of this is outside my control. And for me, I am going to balance. I went, almost 2 weeks over 40 weeks. And for me, the call was kind of, okay, I'm going to say yes to it at 41 weeks and 5 days. So there was a lot of emotion around that leading right up to the birth. And then the second piece that was out of my control as well is that the hospital I was going to give birth at, they were changing their system from a paper-based system to an online system. And it meant that all of the shift workers were learning. Was taking like multiple weeks for everybody to learn the new system. And as a result, like, the quality of their service wasn't quite as good. So they were sending patients to other hospitals. So I was told, like, 2 days before my induction day, like, hey, there's pretty much a very high chance you're actually going to be sent to another hospital. And so it won't be your team, my midwife team, who's delivering the baby. We can't give you any information on where it's going to be or who's going to do it. So I was really upset about that. Luckily, I was able to stay, so that didn't end up coming to pass. But had a very emotionally charged week going into that induction day because there was so much uncertainty, and it was so different than what I had wanted, and I was just worried that it was going to be a chaotic day. Um, but I was really lucky. I think because I got my induction there, I was technically a patient, and so I had a higher likelihood of being able to stay because I was already in the system. So, and by that point, I had made my peace with it. So my induction was on a Sunday, and I had made my peace with it. So much of this it's just not within your control. And so my husband and I went on to get a cervical induction at 3 in the afternoon on a Sunday, and another piece that I kind of knew how it was going to go because my sister had the exact same thing. And one of the parts for me is like I knew it was going to be really painful because she had experienced quite a bit of pain. So I was sad about that too. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to need the cervical induction. And like for my sister, it was painful. So it's probably going to be painful for my body too. But I made my peace with it. And that for me, the amount of pain, my brain was worrying, like that means I'll definitely need medication. And at the time, it really mattered to me to not have medication. And again, just for listeners, like I have a completely different view about that now. I don't care. I think medication was awesome. But this was just where my head was at in that day leading up to it. So I'd made my peace with it. I kind of had a pretty clear idea of how it was going to go because my sisters had the exact same type of induction. And I got the cervical induction 3 in the afternoon, and all of the doctors were saying, usually people need 2 rounds of this. So we're probably going to see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock, and then you're going to come in. But my sister, she had gone into labor the night that she got it. So, and she was telling me, nope, she's texting me saying, you tell those doctors you're going to be back there tonight and you're going to go into labor overnight and you're having your baby tomorrow morning. You tell them so they're ready for you. And I'm like, okay, Allie, whatever. And she texts our whole family chat. Good night, everyone. Like in the morning, we're going to have a new grandchild join the family. Everyone's like, okay. But she was completely right. It was really funny. So at 11 in PM on that Sunday, I start to have the contractions, and I was so excited because I've been waiting for these contractions for so long, and it was great. So my husband and I kind of went to bed, but I was just excited. I thought like maybe I'll be able to sleep and they won't be that strong until the morning, but they increased in strength pretty quickly. Like I definitely wasn't going to sleep. And I was using my breathing techniques to get through most of the night laboring at home, and it was helpful actually. I think for the first maybe 4 hours for me, the breathing techniques were really helpful, and I was able to breathe through and relax my body, even though they were quite strong. I was surprised by how strong they were, and so I went downstairs and I'm putting on some Netflix show and just kind of using that big exercise ball to kind of try and stretch my back and breathe through the contractions, which they were getting more and more intense. So I phoned, and I think they were definitely passing that 411 kind of heuristic or memory tool. Like when it's 411, that's when you go to the doctor, or to the hospital. So I'd phoned them and just shared like, I'm experiencing these many contractions, and at first they were like, no, well, you're talking to us, you're able to talk through it, so we'll see you tomorrow at 1. I'm like, okay. But then an hour later I phone them back and it's getting harder. I'm like, I can't wait till 1. So they're like, okay, come in at 8. I'm like, okay. And then it's getting really intense, and I'm like, I can't wait till 8. And then I call a third time and it's a different gal, and she was super sweet, and she said, we're here for you, come in anytime you need. And I'm like, okay, thank gosh, because like I cannot wait that long. And so I wanted to hold off at home as long as I can because I didn't want to be sent home if I wasn't 4 centimeters dilated yet. And I didn't want them to send me to another hospital if I was like really early. So I hung in at home as long as I could, it was pretty tough. The shower really helped. I can't believe how much the shower helped. It was amazing. It reduced the sensation by like, I would say like 40%. It was amazing. oh, and then I was afraid to get out of the shower. So I was just in the shower for like an hour. I'm like, I can't, the moment I leave, I'm going to not be able to walk anymore. But then we left the house, I think around 5 and got to the hospital at 5:45, and they didn't they didn't
That's a long trip to the hospital, Kelsey.
yeah, yeah, maybe it was a bit after 5. It felt like a half-hour drive.
Okay.
And it was hard, like, yeah, not gonna lie, like, it was I pretty much knew I I pretty much knew, like 3 hours into my laboring, like, I need an epidural. I was like, "I'm getting that epidural." It's not even
Yeah.
a question, like, I want that epidural pretty quickly. So I had, like, my comb, and I'm, like, squeezing my comb in the car. Um, Pretty hard to talk at that. So I was surprised by that. I was definitely surprised, because I definitely have friends who felt very little pain in their contractions. So I it's definitely possible. Lots of people can have very little, like much more moderate pain, but I don't know if it was the induction or what, but it was just my body. But so then we get to the hospital. It took them an hour to check me in and to check me. So that was a little tough. But the good news was that at 7 a.m. when the doctor did finally come and check, I was 4 centimeters dilated. So they kept me at that hospital, which was great. I was really happy about that. Moved me to a room, and it was a bit slow because they were both, the nurses were talking to me and helping me, but then also teaching the other nurses the computer system. So there was it was a little bit slower, and that was the reason they were sending people away, is because it wasn't like the highest quality of care that they would have been able to provide without this transition of system. Um, and admittedly, I didn't. It was a little rough waiting for that epidural. The epidural didn't come till 8:30, so it was a while of experiencing these contractions unmedicated, and that was pretty hard, to be honest. But my partner was really great, and he would rub my back, and we used some of the gas. They taught him how to help me with the gas, and that was helpful. Um, and then at 8:30, I got the epidural, and that was so amazing. That's going to be on my birth plan second time around. Like, just the moment I walk in, just give me the epidural, and the whole thing is so lovely after that. Like, I could look people in the eye. I was able to talk to the nurses. I was like, "Oh, your body's relaxed." Whereas before, it's funny, like, I'm usually quite a friendly person, but it's amazing how much when you're in pain, it it's your irritability is just so high. And like, poor guy came to collect my blood. I don't know what they needed to get my blood or something before the epidural, and I like snapped at him, and I was like, "Ouch, that hurts." I would never speak to somebody that way, but it hurt so much. So the epidural was amazing, and then you could really be present and enjoy it. And um, so what happened at that point was they I was saying, "Wow, this is great. So what do we expect here?" And they're saying, "It'll be probably about 12 hours. Just sit back and relax." Um, but then they realized somebody checked me, and they hadn't realized my waters had broken, while they were trying to get that epidural organized. And I wasn't able to talk. I thought that they knew, like, based on my whimpers, but I wasn't able to actually talk because it was in so much pain. So I just assumed everybody knows exactly what's happening. Like, everybody knows what just happened in my body. They're checking me, but they didn't realize my waters had broken, and my baby had started coming down and descending.
And did you know your waters had broken?
No, I didn't connect mentally, like, my waters have broken, but I did know, and I did try and say to them, like, "The body is pushing, like, the body's wanting to push, like, I can't." And they were like, "No, no, just hold off." And they were great. I don't wanna throw them all under the bus. My nurse was amazing, my midwife was really amazing. I think it was just they just didn't I didn't say it. I didn't They didn't, and they were busy, they were distracted, to be honest, yeah, with the teaching each other how to use this new online system. So my husband actually noticed. He was like, "Hey, there's all this blood." And then that's when they realized, "Oh my gosh, like, the baby's actually already started to come down." Um, and her head was right there. So they all really jumped into action, and they started to notice that, one, her head was already there, and it wasn't going to be 12 hours. My body was already, like, in the process of birthing her. And two was that her heart rate was lowering. So they noticed that on the screen too. They're like, "Oh no, her heart rate's lowered." So they tried changing my position to see if that would move her to help her heart rate, but that didn't work. So they decided, okay, we need to get the OB in and get this baby born like right now. So it actually was, oh, I don't like to use the word emergency. I guess it's uncomfortable, but it was like they needed to intervene, right, in a timely way. So I'm really glad I had the epidural at that part, and they worked very well as a team. They like all snapped into action. Clearly, they had to do this quite often. They got the OB in really quickly, um, and he again, this is like if I had been told this ahead of time, "This is how your birth's gonna go," I would have been really upset. I would have been like, "What? This is" I would have been upset for sure, but it was actually okay, like, it ended up being positive because they really kept me in the loop. The OB, was, like, a kind man. He walked in, he spoke to me, he included me like, I it was a conversation with him, me, the nurse, and my husband, and he explained to me probably pretty quickly, but, like, still did explain to me, "Listen, like, this is what's happening. We want to use an intervention, like, your body's starting to birth, but your baby's heart rate is lower. We wanna get her out, faster, so your options here are to have a vaginal delivery with forceps to get her under the pelvis quickly, because sometimes pushing to get the baby under the pelvis can take, like, a couple hours, and we don't want her heart rate to be low for that long, so we could use forceps for that, or you can have an emergency C-section." Um, and so I went with the forceps, and he was affirming of that decision as well. Yeah, it's interesting reflecting on it because as you're describing, yeah, it's actually like, it was kind of upsetting, but I wasn't scared in the moment, I wasn't scared.
And it sounds like you trusted the doctor. He was
Yeah,
communicating with you, keeping you in the loop. And although it sounds little, like that's huge.
mm,
And it can make such a big difference, just the basics of communication. How bad does that sound? But a lot, yeah, yeah. I think that's huge, is the trust and the communication.
yeah.
And you can't underestimate that. Were you getting a sense that you needed to push with the epidural? Could you feel that you needed to push?
Yes, I could, which it had calmed down, I think, and that was another thing that, like, coming on the other side of it was so positive about the epidural, is that it was, like, the minimal amount. I could still feel the contractions, there was still a burning, like, I could feel it, which is great, I wanted that because I wanted to be connected to the experience. I think it had just calmed down, like, I think I just wasn't noticing it because maybe my body had paused, maybe it had started and then it had paused, because I could definitely feel it, like, I could feel the pushing, and I had no control over that part, so that was happening before the epidural. I think it had just calmed down for a bit. Yeah. Yeah, but I totally resonate with what you're saying there, like, the communication, it was very regulating. I think if they had not looked at me in the eye, and if they had just done their process, kind of ignoring me and cutting me out of it, I think I would have started to feel, much more panic about the situation, but they were speaking to me, yeah, including me. It really felt like even though, of course, it was them, doing the intervention, it felt like everyone was working together. So that definitely helped for sure. And he explained to me what was going to happen. I really appreciated that he only used the forceps just to get her under the pelvis, and then they stopped. And then he would also only use it when my body was having a contraction. So it was only in those times, and everyone was like my nurse and my midwife were there and kind of saying, okay, because I think there was so much adrenaline. So at certain points, I couldn't feel the contraction. So they would say, "Yep, you're having one now," and then I would kind of feel it, and then that's when I would push, and that's when he would use the forcep. So it felt very brief, like it felt quick, and it felt very respectful. And then he he used a bit of humor too. When we're waiting for the contraction, we're all kind of waiting. He's like, "Here, feel her head," and grab my hand, and I felt her head, and that was a crazy experience. So yeah, it was very skillful for, if you have to have them, it was very skillful. And then when she was under the pelvis, he said, "Okay, I'm not it's all you now. You get to do the rest." And so the rest of the birth was just me without the forceps, and that was also really nice. He only came in to help that part.
It's amazing that you felt so calm and
Mm.
positive when you've just been told your baby's heart rate's dropping. How did you stay so calm? Tell us your
Yeah,
trick.
I think that is probably where the hypnobirthing did pay off. I didn't get the birth that I imagined hypnobirthing was going to give me, but definitely practicing, acknowledging any of the fears and anxiety around birth and coping with it and settling your mind and just believing like I can do this in the new way that it looks. Um, I think it really helped, like working through the fears and just facing it and not reacting to them. So I felt that sense of trust with the team, and I that which was really helpful. But it was also like, okay, I can do this. We can do this. Like it's going to be okay. And
Yeah.
didn't let my mind run away on any like potential scenarios with a low heart rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you remember how many pushes and the process of the act of pushing?
It was pretty quick. So like I got that epidural at 8:30. I think within between 8:30 and 9 is when they realized she was here, or she was so close, the heart rate was low. Get the OB in, and she was born by 9:45 in the morning. So my memory is that it was really only like 5 or 6 contractions, um, with the OB maybe helping for like 4. That's kind of like what my memory was of it. It felt very quick, like very efficient, and then it was just done. And it was just like, oh my gosh, it's done, and she's here, and she's on my belly. And the rest of the day just kind of felt like when you've done like a big run in the morning, like a half marathon or something, or like something, and then the rest of the day you're just coasting on this amazing high. She was there, yeah, 9:45 in the morning. Everything, she was totally healthy. Everything was good. And yeah, so it was quick.
Yeah. And did you know you're having a little girl?
We did, yes, we did, and we had her name picked out, and we knew it was a little girl, so yeah, it was a amazing moment.
Yeah. And they popped her straight on your chest and you did the
Yeah.
skin to skin?
Yep, popped her straight on the chest, did the skin to skin. She had a whole bunch of hair. It was like crazy. You don't, because you have this baby inside of you. You're so connected to them through the kicks and all the movements, but you have no idea what they're going to look like. I'm like, oh my God, this is her. Um, yeah, my sister made a joke. Like the reason she stayed in there so long is because she wasn't done doing her hair. We're still working on those locks.
And I'd love to know, was your sister there on the text messages right from, the moment she woke up, finding out how everything was?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think I texted her until after. But yeah, she would have had like, her morning coffee and then getting all the pictures as she knew she was going to get of the baby born that way.
Gorgeous. How was the first breastfeed?
Mm-hmm. It was good. I think I was a little like nervous to start. I think I kept trying to push it off, like, oh, she doesn't need to breastfeed yet. Like, but the midwife and the nurse both taught me, and I think she latched, so it was okay. Um, yeah, it took a couple tries to kind of feel more confident about it, because it's just like, just learning how to hold her and like hold your breast. But yeah, it was good. She latched.
Amazing. And did they do an episiotomy with the forceps?
No, they didn't. Yeah, that's a really good question. Did not have an episiotomy. I think I had 2 second-degree tears, and I think is my memory. Um, and so that was like a whole other part of the recovery of like, I think I didn't these words sound very frightening, right? Like episiotomy or tear, these, and so I think I avoided really looking into what they meant because I just didn't want them. So I'm just going to do stuff to prevent them, which is helpful. We should totally do what we can to reduce the likelihood. But it's uncomfortable being like, oh wow, I had tears, but you just heal. Like it wasn't, experiencing it wasn't as bad as like what my brain thought it would be. I'm like, oh, it's not as scary. It sounds kind of more uncomfortable than it ends up being.
Yeah, that's right. And for anyone listening, you're absolutely right, Kelsey. It does sound scary.
Mm-hmm.
First and second degree tears are really common. Like
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the tears are first, second degree tear, and research tells us that they, statistically speaking, they heal really well long term. Healing is really great, and it's more the third and fourth degree perineal tears that are much less likely to happen, but they're the ones that are more likely to have longer term complications. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
perineal massage can help with, reducing the risk of third and fourth degree perineal tears. So, did you say you did do perineal massage when you were pregnant?
Not really. I had meant to. What did I? I'd meant to do it, and then I think I just kind of was lazy about it and forgot. But I meant to. Yeah, and I'd love to have a second, and I'll definitely do it in preparation for the second.
Well, like for those listening, um, well, first of all, it's generally most effective for first time mums. So it might not be as
Darn
effective second time
it.
around, but it doesn't hurt. And research is still evolving in this area. But for those who are not sure how to do it, don't go Googling it. It's something we offer inside FitNest Mama. You can just access it with a 7-day free trial. If you Google it, you'll find pictures of doing it in standing and all sorts of weird and wonderful positions. And the way I teach it, you want to combine it with that pelvic floor relaxation. You don't want to just be activating your pelvic floor and like tensing up your muscles whilst you're trying to massage. It's I teach it in a way that really helps to support the opening of the birth canal. So feel free 7-day trial. You don't have to stay on, but absolutely it can be really helpful. Kelsey, so pelvic floor wise with the forceps, do you mind if I ask
Yeah.
how's your pelvic floor these days? Any leaking, any incontinence, any prolapse symptoms?
No. Yeah, none of those. So it was really helpful. Um, and also just to note when I at the OB, he explained to me too, which was I think helpful after the forceps is like, just so you know, like you had like these two tears, and it's basically that's the same as a regular vaginal birth. Like he kind of explained it a little bit, which was helpful, kind of demystifying. And even if it hadn't been the same as a regular vaginal birth, like it, we're going to be okay. It doesn't have to be the same, but it was helpful that he was kind of explaining that and communicating that, and I didn't like have to go home and just read that on a note or something, being like, what the heck? So, um, yeah, with the pelvic floor, it was very helpful when I was breastfeeding in the newborn weeks. Overnight, all my overnights, I was listening to your podcast, um, and I think it's just because like birth is so intense, it's kind of all that you want to talk about after. You're like, I can't believe I went through this. I can't believe I'm in this recovery that's so much more. I think people often don't think about the recovery as well. You think a lot about the birth and not the recovery. So I was just listening. The podcast was really helpful because it was just all the topics that I was the only thing I wanted to talk about. And I was learning a lot about pelvic floor every night, like 3 podcasts a night. So that was really helpful in terms of like how to take care of my pelvic floor in recovery. So I knew not to over exercise or to start too hard too early and what to pay attention for. So I did was actually walked a lot. I didn't really walk as early as I thought I would. It took a few weeks because I just didn't feel ready, and I didn't think I would. I thought it was like mind over matter. I didn't realize that I thought it was so mind over matter until I was in it, and I realized, oh, I really thought this was like about your attitude more. But it's not. It's totally not. It's a healing. So listening to the podcast helped give me um, probably a really proactive approach on protecting my pelvic floor. So I didn't, yeah, it was very helpful. I didn't walk, or didn't go for very long walks till like 3 weeks. Not long walks, just like moderate walks till after 3 weeks. So I just didn't feel like it. I was like doesn't feel good, and I'm bleeding a bit more when I try and go for a little walk. Like, it's actually not good. So I was just rested a lot longer, and so far haven't had any issues. Um, I did see a pelvic floor physio. Um, can't remember whenever the recommended time is to go get an
About
assessment.
6 weeks.
Okay, maybe it was 6 or 7 weeks that I went. Yeah, it was 7 weeks. And I did that to just kind of have an assessment and see, is there anything, any like damage or anything
Mm-hmm.
I need to know. But she said everything was okay. One of my sides was like a little weaker than the other, but nothing was damaged. And these are some exercises to do. So um, that was good. And then I was very cognizant for me to really postpone going back to running, which I think was positive. I was a lot more focused on doing lighter, like lower impact than I thought I would be. And so, yeah, so far have not experienced any challenges, and so I'm grateful for that. I should probably go again to have it checked out again. Yeah.
Amazing, Kelsey. And that proactive approach in your postnatal recovery, like, that's amazing. And, you've had a forceps, so your risk was increased and you've totally come out the other side, and amazing. And it's really nice to hear a positive forceps story, because that's where statistics and percentages and all the rest are scary. But the reality is, even if your risk is higher and I'm talking about pelvic floor trauma post birth with forceps, it's still like, and look, research is dodgy and it varies article to article. But let's say it's a 5% risk of pelvic floor trauma after a vaginal birth, spontaneous, and then after a forceps it jumps to 15 to 20%. You've still got an 80% chance that things are going to be okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a big percentage likelihood that everything's going to be right. So and you did the proactive measures to really help support your recovery. You held yourself back, which I think was very wise, because it's often that is just so often women come and see me in the clinic and they felt great postpartum, and then things fell in a heap when they went back to doing running or long walks too early. And so I think you did an amazing job. So well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So I'm aware of the time. To wrap this up, Kelsey, for anyone listening today, let's say they're pregnant and they're about to embark on their birth journey. Do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
Yes. I would say preparing, I would say, first of all, like, no matter what your birth ends up looking like, whether it's, what you hoped for, or if there's some curveballs, like, you you are going to do great in whichever way that it looks. Like, you can cope with it. And there might be a scenario that sounds really scary to us and we don't want to happen, and it probably won't happen. But if it does, the most important thing is just having your healthy baby at the end, and that you can cope with it. All of whichever scenario it ends up being. Um, and really just having that mindset, like, if that happens, it's not ideal, but I can cope with it, and I'll have my healthy baby. I came out more pro-medical than I was going into it, and I was really grateful for my team and their expertise. Um, I was also just kind of noting, I didn't realize I felt a little ashamed after I had the forceps. I didn't realize that I had this mentality of, like, I had so imagined one way of giving birth that there was a sense of, like, "Oh, I failed." That came up a few days later. So just noticing that, being like, "Wow, I put a lot of pressure on myself for it to go this one specific way when that was not within my control." There's such a biological element to how your birth goes, and preparation definitely helps, but there's such a biological piece. So you can cope with whatever way it goes, and you'll have your healthy baby, um, and then preparing a little bit more for the recovery, like thinking a little bit more about recovery and giving yourself a lot more grace than you would think. And just knowing, it's the first couple weeks, and this isn't to scare people, but just to remember, like, it's a lot on you, right? You have way less sleep than you had before. You are recovering physically, and it's like as if you broke your leg, you're not expected to, like, go do a bunch of stuff on your leg the next day. It's 6 weeks, like, your body needs time to heal. So just kind of having that in your mindset.
6 months, a whole year.
6 Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, not 6 weeks for a leg, that's true, yeah. But in general, like, the main part of, like, a big kind of like a big thing is healing. It's often that first 6 weeks is, like, really vulnerable, and then it continues. So just having that in your mindset of, like, giving yourself a lot of grace and a lot more time than the pressure you're feeling to get your house organized or your body back in shape is kind of telling you. So just giving yourself grace, knowing that you're in for the lack of sleep, and then if you're breastfeeding, learning to breastfeed and the recovery, it's like the trifecta of, like, so much on your body at the beginning, and just kinda knowing, like, it's gonna be a lot at first, and then it gets better really quickly, and just so that we're less kind of, shell shocked at the beginning too. So just having a little bit of just preparing and letting your family and your partner know, like, what you need for support in those times, and it gets better so quickly because your body does heal. And it feels so vulnerable at the beginning, and I think it's so natural for everyone to fear, "Oh my god, I'm not gonna heal." Like, that's probably what everybody, at least that's what I thought. Like, "Oh my god, what if I just don't heal?" But, like, your body heals, and a few months go by, and it you be feel you heal a bit more, and you do things to, help your body heal the best that it can. So that's what I would those are the big things that I would say, and, yeah, whatever happens, you can cope with it, and you're gonna have this amazing new chapter with your baby, which is the most important part, because then the months go by and the birth is it's great, but it's also like one little blip along the whole road, and the main point is you get this baby and this relationship with your baby, and that's really the real adventure. So, um, yeah,
And then
that's
that
what I
baby
would.
grows into a toddler, and then that toddler
Oh my
goes to
gosh.
preschool, and then
Yeah.
school, and then high school, which is where I'm at now. So it just keeps on,
Oh,
the chapters
delightful.
keep on evolving, don't they? It's
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
It is.
Thank you
It
so
is.
much, Kelsey. I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat today. Thank you for being an avid listener of the podcast. Thank you for, joining FitNest Mama, the app, and thank you for sharing your beautiful story. And I know it can be hard to share the story, and
Mm.
you can feel almost a little bit vulnerable. So I really do appreciate you taking the time and effort today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the work that you do, because it's really helpful to have such quality information out for people and to have so much of it free and accessible. And then the app as well, I forgot to say that, but that was a really helpful piece when I did get into the exercise at 6 weeks. I felt so safe knowing that all of the guidance I was getting was such high quality guidance, and that was really reassuring, and confidence boosting. And I took those skills with me as I continued onward. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Kelsey. You have a great day, and we'll chat to you soon. Thanks for listening to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast, brought to you by FitNest Mama, your app for home-based, physio-led pregnancy and postnatal workouts. If you found this episode helpful, please tap follow, leave a quick review, and share it to your stories. Tag at kathbequee.physio. I'd love to connect and cheer you on. And don't forget to check out the free trial at fitnessmama.com/free to start feeling confident, strong, and supported today. Until next time, remember, a strong body, a confident birth, and empowered recovery is something you deserve. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your healthcare provider for your personalised guidance.